Okay, it's been a little while since I've done some filming. It's been a couple of weeks, a couple of chaotic weeks. I haven't had a chance to do a whole lot. I've been trying to rack my brains as to a project that I can start. Honestly, I thought I was coming up empty-handed. There is a project I'd like to do, but I can't do it right now. I don't have the funds to buy the materials that I want. So I went scrounging around all my scrap piles and whatnot. And luckily, I did find a whole bunch of offcuts of 1075, 1084, and 3 little piddly pieces of 15N20. I think I'll be able to, with a bit of work, bring all of these together into a billet, and I think I might make some sort of a small camping knife or something. It won't be Damascus, because I don't have the 15N20. What I'm going to do is hopefully forge weld them together, then I'll draw them out to the same length as these, then bring all of that together, and it should give me a fairly decent billet, which then I will, rather than cutting to shape, I'll try to forge into the shape that I want, or roughly anyway, to try and cut back on how much material I waste. So to begin with, the first thing I'll do is weld these together with a bead along all corners, put a handle on it, and forge weld it together. As disgusting as those welds may be, it's now time to whack it in the forge, bring it up to temp, throw a bit of borax in there, and forge weld it together. I've just marked out the size that I'm aiming for with this billet to keep all the pieces at the same size. I'm not sure if that was a successful forge weld or not. For now, I'll just finagle it a little bit and come back when I'm up to reshaping. My problem right now is I'm running out of gas, which means I may not actually get this to where I need it to be tonight. This is going to take a while. Alright, so I've had a little bit of an oopsie from my previous project where I welded in some things to my anvil. I've got these little spots that I haven't ground off yet. I was aware of them. I forgot this one was here, I guess. So as I was trying to forge this thing to shape, oh, it's hot. So I basically drove that weld right into the side of the billet, which is 100% absolutely, definitely gonna turn into cold shuts if I try to keep forging that. I'm gonna wait for it to cool off and try and figure out how the hell I'm gonna fix it. So I goofed. This is less than ideal. If I was to try and forge on that, I'd get cold shuts, which I definitely don't want. I'm not sure how to fix this. I'm not sure. This is what happens when you're not careful. I knew the issues with the anvil were there, and I chose to try to work around them rather than fix them to begin with. So I don't 100% know what to do here. If I was to angle grind it out, it'd be a fairly large chunk that I'd have to remove, which I might find hard to forge back into shape. Or maybe I would be better off take a section out, which would leave me with like a indentation with 2 high points, which I could then forge the high points down. That might be the best bet. So what I'll do is I think I'll fire up the forge, and while that's heating, I'll think about how to fix this, and I will also fix the anvil so I don't do this again. And another thing I have found out is that when a large amount of the gas is released from the gas bottle, whatever reaction it is causes it to get really cold, as it like ice builds up on the bottom of the bottle. And when it cools off, it loses pressure, and then you lose heat in the forge. So what I'm going to do is a water bath. So I'm going to put the gas bottle into a big buckety thing and fill it with water. It should keep the gas bottle at a more reasonable temperature, because it will have to cool down all the water before the gas can get cold. Oh, it should be alright. That's what I'll spend the next hour and a half doing. Well, that went surprisingly well. It actually only took about 10 minutes. Turns out when you use a bucket of water and keep the bottle cool, the pressure really does stay right up there in the forge, so I didn't lose any heat. It was fantastic. Certainly made it easier. That whole issue that I had, I've seemed to fix that alright. I've got it to roughly the same length as one of these. Once this cools off, I'm going to weld. So this will be on one side. Okay, so I have one piece. Why am I wearing these gloves still? One piece of 1084 is what I will put against this 1075. Then I have two pieces of 1075. So it will have these two forge welded together with the 1084 there. Then on this side, it'll be the 1075 that I've just forge welded together. So I'll have a billet that consists of 1075, 1084 in the middle, and then two more 1075 on the outside. Oh, that's hot. So then if everything goes to plan and the 1084 stays in the middle, when I grind my bevels, I'll have the 1084 for the cutting edge of the blade, which I think is a higher carbon, better for a blade edge. So I'm not going to weld these, like forge weld these together individually. I'll probably just stack this against the 1075 that I've put together now, as is. Forge weld the whole lot together, and then see if I can forge it into shape. I've now prepped the surface for the next layers, hoping that these two side by side are roughly the same thickness as this, which it's pretty close, it's close enough. I should probably be prepping these, shouldn't I? So I've cleaned off the surfaces that are actually going to be touching. This will be my outside layer. So that's clean on both sides. 1084, 1075, clean on both sides. 1075, doesn't matter on that side. Like that. We're proud on all the edges of the newly forged welds, newly forged 1075, which is good because I just plan on forging these together to begin with, and then I'm going to grind pretty much all of the edges off to make sure I'm rid of any welds that I have. So there we have 4 really ugly welds. You can see there's a fairly big gap in here. I'm not too concerned. Once it's hot, I'll squeeze them together and then I'll bring them up to heat and do a forge weld. Alright, just gonna squeeze these pieces together. Now some borax. So I'm just going back and forth through the hot spot of the forge to heat the billet as evenly as possible, because we've got one side that's really thick, another side that's really thin, 2 thin layers in between. Just going to try and keep it as even as possible. I think I might have done it, but because I have mismatched sizes, I'm not sure if maybe down here I've got a bad weld, in here if it's not really forged together. I think it's fine, it's just a little hard to tell. Why can't I ever get these right? Now that it's cooled off and I'm having a look at it, I was concerned about down here not being forged together. Why won't it focus? But as you can see, through here is a much bigger issue. In fact, if I take this torch and I put it through, you can see the light coming straight through the piece. Which means from here to here, it's not forged together. And that's a pretty major issue. It really is. Because if it's forged from here on, I can't fix it. This was supposed to be a fairly simple one. There shouldn't have been much room for error. But it turns out all I need is a small amount of room for error, and I will make an error. I don't know how to fix this, and I'm getting tired of having to fix things. It just shows that I don't really have the understanding yet. It looks like my 1075 went together just fine. Both the 4 pieces that I put together first and these 2 that were on the edge. So it leads me to believe that there's something with the 1084 that I'm not quite understanding. Whether it needs to be even hotter, or maybe the outsides were hot enough to forge weld, but it didn't quite get right through to the center, so the innermost part wasn't at welding temp. The problem now, and it's a big problem, is that because it's not sealed, oxygen was able to get in there, which means that there is going to be a layer of scale oxidization inside my billet now. And that's a really big problem, and I can't see any way around it. I was hoping to have this billet as one piece tonight, but it looks like it's going to have to wait another day. So it's the next day, and I've had a full night shift worth of thinking on how to fix this, and some Googling. And from a brief 5 minutes of Googling, I'm led to believe that the issue is the 1084, that maybe it doesn't bond well with the 1075. Could be wrong, but a very quick Google search showed me that. One of the remedies I read was to soak it for a long period of time in vinegar, which will soften up the scale, which is great, but the downside of that is you need to follow it with a wire brush or something, which I can't get to inside here with a wire brush. So what I'm now thinking is that I'm going to grind off the outside scale and then try and pry these 1075 sides away from the 1084 in the middle. I'm hoping that it's just a pour forge the whole way down. Yeah, that's all I got. So hopefully, it's not all I've got. So if I can do that, if I can pry these apart and end up with 2 pieces again, I'm going to put this side onto this side, and we'll have one thick piece of 1075, and we'll do away with the 1084 altogether. So I guess there's nothing to it but to do it. Okay, so I've got it all cleaned up on both sides. Now it's time to try and pry these apart. I can't find the tools I'm looking for. So I'm just going to use this flat bladed screwdriver. And I'm just going to give it a good old whack. Okay, let's have a look. I have separated the 1084 from the 1075, and you can see that it didn't take at all. It's just deformed. It hasn't welded. I don't think it's welded together at all, which is fine. So now here I've got my fat 5 layers of 1075, and here's the 1084 still attached. So the plan is now to take this bit of 2 layers of 1075 and attach them like so, and then the 1084 will be on the outside. And I should be able to forge weld that fairly easily. The next thing that you'll see me doing is forging them together. I'll skip all the crap before. Think we had some success. I mean, I've thought that before, but whatever. This thing's really hot. I have a small amount of delamination where it hasn't quite fused together here. I think internally it'll be right. Again, some discrepancy in sizing, but whatever. I'm hoping that by having the 1084 on the outside this time, it got hot enough to be a successful forge weld to the rest, and hopefully we have just one nice solid piece here. So once this has cooled off, it'll be a fair bit of grinding. I'll need to take the top section off to get rid of the weld, like the stick weld inclusion. I'll need to grind this all to a even thing. The top I'll need to grind down and try to find how deep the separation goes. Really hoping it's not very deep. So now it's just, I just gotta wait for it to cool. I've ground the top, the bottom, and I took the front edge off and I lopped the corners off to make sure there's no stick weld inclusions. This end is still full of inclusions, but we'll cut that off once we've forged the shape. This thing's kind of hot. I'm satisfied, reasonably satisfied in the forge weld, and it even looks like the 1084 took to the 1075. I now have a nice solid piece, and now that I've done that, I'm not sure what to do. I guess I have to figure out a shape that I want this to be. All I do know, I'm going to get it to forging temp and start striking this thing on an angle, which should start to give me tapers, and in doing so should make this piece longer as well. So I think the very next step is I'm going to jump on the internet and have a look at some knife templates. After some deliberation, I've decided not to go with a pre-made template. Not because I think I know what I'm doing, because we all know I don't, but there's just so many different options and choices and whatnot. I think I'd rather just start forging this down and sort of just work towards something that I like. So I think the first thing I'm going to do, I'll try and see if I can get it thinner. Then I'll work on the tapers. Then I will isolate some of the rear section. And I reckon I'm going to make this into another hidden tang blade, because that saves me material. By making this skinny and long means I can utilize the rest of the steel for the blade itself. Not sure about the way that it's bowing in the middle there. I'm not sure whether I should come from the other side and try and rectify it, which could potentially leave it worse, or whether I keep working one side all the way around. Working at these temps and just doing little bits at a time, way easier than trying to forge weld. I may need to hold my piece on more of an angle, use the anvil to start punching that part that I don't like back into itself. The issue I'm dealing with is that I've somehow developed this, well, not somehow, it makes sense, but I've got this like fish mouth thing going on here with the piece on the tip, which is causing me a bit of grief. So once it cools off a bit, I'm going to come with the angle grinder and just smooth off the taper a bit, and then we can get back to forging. I've just ground out the worst spot. Now I need to make it a bit longer, a little bit thinner. I'll try and work on this bit of thickness as well. So I might just skip that and I'll come back once I'm where I think I need to be. Can sort of see what I was going for here. We got the tapered blade, and then here is where I'm trying to forge the tang down, proving to be rather tricky. Once I have the handle welded back on, I'll keep working at it. Okay, I've run out of time for this week to get any more of this done, which is a little disappointing, but that's all I managed to achieve. I think it's a successful billet, but I started running into some issues once I started to try and isolate and forge down the tang. This was a nice straight edge, but I've started, as you can see, it's a downward taper at the end. So I need to figure out a way of bringing this down without deforming the rest of it. I have a couple of ideas, but it will have to wait till the next time. So once again, a whole lot of fuss in a video and not much to show for it, but that's just the way it is. So on the next episode, hopefully I'll get this forged to the shape that I want and get some bevels ground in. I will grind the bevels in, get it to the shape that I want, and then from there it'll be time to put a handle on it. So cheers for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye.